I said goodbye, but when she smiled and whispered, "You never really do," I knew nothing would ever be the same. I used to think goodbyes were simple. Just a word, a slight wave, a door closing behind you. But then I met her, and nothing stayed simple after that. The night it truly began wasn't special to anyone else. Just a late evening, the sky bruised purple, streetlights flickering on one by one like tired eyes opening. I'd gone to return a book she had lent me, an old paperback with a coffee stain and her handwriting in the margins. I could have dropped it off the next morning or the day after, but for some reason, I walked to her door that night. Her porch light was on, soft and warm, like she already expected someone. I almost turned around, but then the door opened before I knocked. She stood there in a loose cardigan, sleeves pushed up just enough to see the faint shimmer of lotion on her wrists. Her hair was pulled back, not neatly, but in that way people do when they've given up keeping it perfect. There was a tiredness around her eyes that made her look real, human, beautiful in a way I didn't know how to explain. "You're late," she said, not accusing, just noticing. "I wasn't sure you'd still be awake," I replied. "You always come when it's inconvenient," she murmured, stepping aside to let me in. But she said it with a small, almost hidden smile, like maybe she didn't mind. Inside, her living room felt warmer than I remembered. A lamp glowed in the corner, low enough to leave soft shadows on her cheekbones. A mug of tea sat untouched on the table, steam long gone. Music played faintly from her phone, an old song, gentle, almost wistful. I held out the book. "You said I could return it whenever." She glanced at it, then at me. "I did, but this is sooner than I expected. I finished it. Already." I nodded. Her eyebrow lifted slightly, surprised but not entirely. She knew I paid attention to the things she gave me, maybe more than I should. She took the book, her fingers brushing mine for half a second. Not long enough to count, just long enough to notice. "You marked pages," she said, flipping through. "The parts that mattered to you? Mostly things you wrote in the margins." That made her pause. Not a big pause, just the kind where someone suddenly remembers they once revealed more than they meant to. Her voice softened. "I didn't think anyone noticed that." "I did." She looked at me then, really looked. And for the first time, she didn't hide the way her gaze lingered too long. The kind of look that should have meant nothing, but didn't. "You shouldn't stay long," she whispered. But she didn't move away. "It's just a book. I'll leave right after." "You always say that." Maybe she was right. Maybe I always meant to leave, but somehow never quite managed to. The room went quieter, as if even the air refused to interrupt us. She leaned her hip against the table, arms folded, not defensive, more like she was trying to hold something steady inside her. "How was your day?" I asked. She laughed under her breath. "You don't want to know. You don't." Her eyes softened again. Too much softness for someone who claimed she didn't want me there for long. She told me about her day, work frustrations, a comment someone made, a memory she tripped over unexpectedly. And I listened, so closely her voice started to sound familiar, like something I'd known quietly for years. At one point, she brushed a strand of hair back behind her ear, but her hand trembled a little. Just a little. Enough for me to see what she didn't say. When I finally stood to leave, she walked me to the door. Not because she had to, but because something in neither of us wanted the moment to end too quickly. "I should go," I said. She nodded slowly, but then she stepped closer, close enough that her perfume rose between us, faint and warm. "Goodbye," I whispered. She smiled, soft, knowing, almost sad. "You never really do," she murmured. Before I could ask what she meant, before I could breathe properly again, someone knocked on the door behind me. The knock behind me broke something, like a thin layer of ice cracking under weight. She didn't move at first. Neither did I. As she cleared her throat softly, the way people do when they need to hide something quick. I should get that," she murmured. She stepped around me, fingers brushing my arm accidentally, or maybe not accidentally at all. I couldn't tell anymore. The contact was brief, barely a whisper across my sleeve, but it left heat behind. When she opened the door, a man stood there. Older than me, maybe closer to her age, wearing a jacket still wet from the evening drizzle. "Forgot my keys," he said, shaking his head at himself. She didn't flinch. "You always do." He walked past me without a second glance, like I was some neighbor kid borrowing sugar. I knew better. I wasn't just someone, and she knew it too. Her eyes flicked toward me as the man disappeared down the hallway toward the kitchen. "That's my ex-husband," she said quietly before I could ask. I didn't answer right away. I wasn't sure what I was allowed to ask, what I had the right to feel. "You didn't tell me he still comes by," I finally said. She offered a small shrug, but it was the kind that didn't belong to her shoulders. It belonged to old damage. "We're untangling things. Paperwork. The last pieces of a long story." She paused. "It's not romantic anymore. Just complicated. Complicated." That word hung between us like heavy fabric, folding, layering, hiding. I could have left then. I should have. But something rooted me there. Something that didn't care about boundaries or age or whether her ex-husband was still drying rain off his jacket in the kitchen. She leaned against the door frame slightly, arms crossing herself again, a shield she kept forgetting to keep up. "You look uncomfortable," she said. "I'm not." It was a lie, but not the kind that wanted to escape. "You're too young for this kind of mess," she whispered. "You don't know what I'm used to." Her eyes softened, just for a second. "Maybe not. But you shouldn't have to navigate another person's broken edges." "I don't mind sharp things," I said quietly. She inhaled, slow, controlled, but her fingers curled against her arms, like something inside her wanted to reach out, but refused. Then something shifted in her expression, almost like she was reconsidering every word she'd said to me from the moment we met. Like she was searching for a way to draw a line neither of us would respect for long. "I shouldn't be this close to you," she said. "Then step back," I murmured. She didn't. In the kitchen, her ex-husband clattered something, muttering to himself. The mundane noise broke the heaviness, but it didn't erase it. "He won't stay long," she said. "You don't have to explain." "I'm not explaining." She paused. "I just don't want you to misread things." Too late. I'd been misreading, or maybe reading too clearly, since the moment she opened her door. When the man finally left with a tired wave, she closed the door quietly, leaning against it for a breath. A long one. Then she looked at me, not like before. This time, like she was letting herself see what she shouldn't. "I didn't expect you tonight," she said softly. "I know." She took a step toward me. Not much, half a foot, maybe, but the room felt smaller, warmer. Her hand lifted slightly, like she meant to touch my cheek, but changed direction at the last second. Instead, her fingertips brushed the collar of my shirt, as if straightening something that wasn't crooked. A small touch, a small excuse. But her hand lingered, and neither of us pretended it meant nothing. There's a moment, so small you'd miss it if you weren't paying attention, where two people stumble too close to something they can't take back. That moment came for us the second her fingers stayed on my collar, just a breath too long. She must have felt it too, because she pulled her hand back suddenly, like the fabric burned her. "I shouldn't," she whispered. But she didn't move away. Neither did I. Her eyes flicked to my mouth for half a second, but I felt it everywhere. Then, her phone vibrated sharply on the table. She flinched. I stepped back. The air between us snapped like a stretched rubber band finally released. She grabbed the phone too quickly, her voice tightening as she answered. "Yes." A pause. "No, it's fine. I was just home." She turned away slightly, but not enough to hide the tension in her shoulders. Whoever was on the other side wasn't her ex-husband. This voice made her nervous in a different way. When she hung up, she set the phone down gently, too gently, like it might explode if she didn't. "Who was that?" I asked. She hesitated, really hesitated. "My daughter," she finally said. She might drop by. Right then, everything in my chest went tight. I knew her daughter. We weren't strangers. We went to the same university, shared class once. I'd never imagined this would be the situation she'd find me in. "You should go," she said quickly, brushing past me, tidying the coffee table in fast, unnecessary movements. Her voice cracked just barely. I shouldn't have let things." She stopped, pressing a hand to her forehead. "You didn't let anything," I said. "We were just talking." Her laugh came out thin. "Talking, right." She moved toward the door like she meant to open it, but her hand hovered above the knob, unmoving. I don't want my daughter thinking she didn't finish. so I finished it for her. Thinking you're with someone my age? Her silence was confirmation. And what do you think? I asked. Her breath caught. She turned toward me, eyes flashing. Fear, longing, regret, all knotted together. I think, she said slowly, that I'm old enough to know better. And I'm old enough to choose what I want. That stunned her speechless. For a moment, the only sound was the low hum of her refrigerator and her heartbeat echoing in the small space between us. Don't, she whispered. Don't make this harder. Her voice was breaking, but she still hadn't opened the door. Footsteps sounded outside the building. Quick, confident, familiar. Her daughter, coming up the stairs. Her eyes widened, and so did mine. Go, she whispered. But it wasn't anger. It was fear. Fear for me. Fear for her. I stepped toward the hallway, but she grabbed my wrist. Not forcefully, desperately. Wait. The way she said it, quiet, trembling, made everything inside me tilt. Her hand stayed wrapped around mine, warm and soft and terrified. Her daughter's distinct voice floated up the stairwell. Close, too close. We froze in the dim entryway, her fingers tightening around my wrist, as if letting go would mean losing something neither of us had admitted wanting. I don't want this to be goodbye, she breathed. The doorknob on the outside rattled, and she didn't let go. Her grip on my wrist burned, not from pressure, but from the quiet insistence behind it. Her daughter's voice was closer now, stepping onto the landing. Each word carried that casual authority of someone who had no idea how delicate the tension behind the door had become. She started, then faltered. I could see the pull in her chest, the small hitch of air that meant she was trying not to collapse into something she wasn't supposed to feel. Her eyes flicked to mine, searching, pleading. I shouldn't want this, she whispered, almost to herself. But I knew she did, and I wanted it too. Every inch of me wanted it. I stepped closer, almost forgetting the world outside this room, almost forgetting the knock at the door. You do want it, I said, voice low. I can see it. Her lips parted, but no sound came. She swallowed hard, and her hand, her wrist still in mine, shook ever so slightly. You're too young, she said, the words sharp but fragile. It's wrong. Wrong, I echoed softly. Who decides that? You. Her eyes widened, and for a heartbeat, her composure slipped. Something primal and desperate flickered there. Jealousy? Fear? Desire? All of it bundled into one. You think I don't have obligations, responsibilities? She snapped, then immediately softened, pressing her lips together to stop herself. I know, I said. I see you. I see all of it. The tired mornings, the things you carry alone, the walls you build so carefully. She blinked, and suddenly her hand left mine, moving to clutch at her cardigan as if it could hold her steady. Why are you doing this? She asked, voice trembling. Why are you here? Because I can't stop, I said. I've tried. I leave. I come back. I think about you when I shouldn't. Her eyes darted away, and I caught a flicker of something dangerous, a hint of jealousy, like she was afraid someone else would see what she already knew she couldn't hide. I shouldn't let this happen, she whispered, backing toward the door again. It's messy, complicated. I don't care about messy, I said. I only care about you. Her hands fell to her sides, trembling. She looked at me like I had revealed something sacred, dangerous, inevitable. A sharp knock sounded different this time. Not her daughter, not her ex, but a friend she didn't want knowing. Her eyes widened. Panic. I can't, she began, then stopped, gaze dropping to my lips for the briefest instant, so fast I almost missed it. I know, I whispered, but maybe we don't have to decide yet. Not fully. Her breath hitched. Her chest rose and fell unevenly. The air between us felt thick, heavy, impossible to move through. Her fingers twitched, a small, unconscious reach toward me, then pulled back like she'd burned herself. I stepped closer anyway. Her eyes widened in warning, but something in them begged me to stay. And in that suspended heartbeat, with the world pressing on the other side of the door, everything balanced on the edge of one choice. To cross the line we'd been circling since the night I returned her book. The knock came again, harder, impatient, urgent, and she didn't move away. The knock came one last time, louder, insistent. She froze. I could feel it, her body stiffening, every muscle tightening like a spring. "It's my daughter," she whispered, voice barely audible. She wants to talk to me before bed. "Please, just stay here." I nodded, trying not to breathe too loudly. But then I heard a voice I didn't expect. "Mom." Not hers. Not her daughter's. Someone else. A soft laugh followed, too familiar, too sharp. "I didn't think anyone was here," the voice said. I turned slightly. Through the sliver of hallway light, I saw him, her ex-husband. Not supposed to be back yet. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes landed on me, and I felt it immediately. The game had changed. She stiffened beside me, like she was ready to pull me into the shadows. I just, she started, fumbling for words. He held up a hand, calm but deliberate. "It's fine. Just didn't expect company." Her gaze snapped to me. Fear, confusion, anger all tangled together. I wanted to say something, but my voice wouldn't come. Then he moved closer. Not aggressively, but close enough that I realized the truth. He had been here earlier. He had seen me. Seen us. Maybe not everything, but enough. Her fingers found mine again, squeezing a lifeline in the chaos. "I didn't think you'd," she whispered, cutting herself off. "You didn't tell him about us," I said, voice low. She shook her head slightly, almost imperceptibly. Her eyes glistened, betraying the guilt she'd tried to hide. I didn't know how," she admitted. "I didn't know if I should. I thought it would just complicate things." Complicate things. That phrase had never felt heavier. He glanced between us, a quiet tension radiating from him, like he was trying to measure everything without making a sound. "You need to go," she said sharply. Her voice shook, not from anger but fear. I can't," I whispered. My stomach turned. My chest burned. I never felt so exposed, so naked to someone else's judgment. She turned to me, her eyes wide, desperate. "Please, not now." I wanted to argue. I wanted to step closer and tell her that nothing else mattered, that this us was worth every risk. But his gaze pinned me in place. The unspoken question lingered. What had she told him? Or what hadn't she told him? Her hand stayed in mine, warm but trembling. I could feel her heartbeat, fast, irregular. "Don't let him see this," she murmured. "Don't let him." She trailed off, like saying it aloud would make it real. I swallowed. My pulse raced. I had wanted honesty, wanted clarity, but the truth I got was more complicated, more dangerous, more intoxicating than I'd imagined. And in that small, tense apartment, the world outside disappeared. There was just the three of us and a fragile, precarious thing that had grown between her and me. Her ex-husband cleared his throat, breaking the spell, and suddenly everything could shatter with a single word, a single look. Her fingers tightened around mine. "Promise me," she whispered, "whatever happens, don't let this end." And I realized I couldn't promise that. Not anymore. Her hand in mine felt like a lifeline, a tether to something that was both terrifying and impossible to ignore. The ex-husband stood near the doorway, quiet now, watching. Every second stretched, heavy and brittle. I wanted to speak, to defend what was between us, but my voice felt trapped behind the walls of my own fear. She took a step closer to me. Her eyes were raw, shining in the dim light, and I saw the weight of every decision she'd carried for years. The regrets, the promises broken, the loneliness she didn't show anyone. "I shouldn't," she whispered. "I know," I said, "but you're here, now, and I'm not going anywhere." Her chest rose and fell, a soft tremor betraying how tightly she was holding herself together. Then, slowly, like she was letting a secret breathe, she reached up, brushing a strand of hair from my forehead. Her fingers lingered, feather-light, and I felt my pulse spike. "You don't know how long I've wanted someone to see me," she said softly, almost afraid to speak. "I see you," I replied, almost a whisper, almost too much. Her lips parted slightly. I wanted to close the distance, wanted to let every unsaid word spill into a touch, a kiss, a confession. But the ex-husband's presence made the moment fragile, delicate, impossible to claim fully. He cleared his throat again, a small, polite noise, but it was enough to remind us the world outside this bubble of tension still existed. She flinched, and I took her hand in both of mine, anchoring her. "Does he know?" I asked softly. "Not fully," she admitted. Her voice broke on the last word. "And I don't want him to. Not yet. Not like this. Then we make it ours," I said. "Even if it's messy. Even if it's complicated. Even if the world thinks it shouldn't exist." Her eyes filled, and I saw her walls crumble in the smallest, most human way possible. She leaned into me, barely a breath, and for a moment, the room contracted to just the two of us. "I'm scared," she murmured. "I know," I said. "I'm scared too. But maybe that's the point. That we're both standing here anyway." The ex-husband shifted in the background, clearing his throat again, and I could see the decision she had to make. Duty or desire, safety or truth. She pressed her forehead briefly to mine, a fleeting, intimate gesture, and I felt the weight of her choice without a word spoken. "I can't promise the world won't try to pull us apart," she whispered. "But I can promise I won't walk away from this. From you." The words settled between us like a fragile truce with the universe. Messy, imperfect, human. I wanted to speak, to tell her that she didn't have to explain herself, that I would take her exactly as she was, but she pressed a finger to my lips, silencing me with a laugh that was half relief, half disbelief. Then she let go. We didn't kiss. Not yet. But everything had shifted. The tension, the longing, the unspoken, dangerous attraction. It was ours now, undeniable and irrevocable. I stepped back, heart racing, knowing that tomorrow, or maybe even tonight, would demand more than words, more than courage. But for this moment, for just this fragile, trembling heartbeat, we existed together. And that was enough. Outside, the apartment hummed with life, mundane and relentless. But inside, we had found a small, dangerous, beautiful truth. We hadn't crossed the final line, but the line wasn't the point anymore. It was us, and we were here. Morning came quietly. The city outside her window moved on as if nothing had changed, but inside, everything had shifted. She sat on the edge of her sofa, mug of coffee warming her hands. I watched her, noticing details I'd memorized without realizing. The soft crease at the corner of her eyes when she smiled, the way her hair fell in loose waves over one shoulder, the faint scent of vanilla, and something uniquely hers. "You stayed," she said softly, almost surprised. "I stayed, irresistible. Because I wanted to." She shook her head, a small laugh escaping, the kind that was both relieved and a little embarrassed. "You shouldn't have. It's messy, my life." "I like messy," I said, "especially when it's yours." Her gaze lingered, searching, almost questioning, like she was weighing her own heart against the world outside this apartment. Then she exhaled slowly, the tension in her shoulders easing for the first time in days. "I never thought someone could see me," she admitted. "All the mistakes, the regrets, the everything. And still care." "I do," I said simply. "And I don't want to stop." For a moment, we just sat there, letting the silence stretch and settle. No grand gestures, no dramatic confessions. Just the quiet understanding that we'd both crossed invisible lines we hadn't dared name. Her ex-husband had left early that morning. Her daughter was still asleep, unaware of the invisible thread tying us together. And we, somehow, had found a fragile peace in the middle of it all. "You know," she said, sipping her coffee, "this doesn't fix everything. Life will still be messy, complicated, full of things we can't control." "I know," I said, "but maybe that's what makes it worth it. That we're choosing it anyway." Her lips curved in a small, real smile, different from the quiet, cautious ones I'd seen before. This one had light behind it, hope, and a little mischief. "I suppose," she murmured, "if we're careful, we might just survive this." I reached for her hand, entwining our fingers. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't need to be. But in that touch, we said everything neither of us could voice. Trust, desire, understanding, and the promise that we'd face the world together. We lingered like that, hearts beating in quiet synchrony, each of us aware of the risks, the forbidden edges of our connection. but unwilling to step back. And for the first time in a long time, she let herself lean into something that scared her, something that made her feel alive again. I realized then that love wasn't tidy. It wasn't easy. It was imperfect, messy, and terrifying, but it was worth it. The morning light stretched across the room, washing over us. And in that light, I knew, whatever came next, we'd face it side by side. No more regrets. No more running. Just us here now. Her fingers squeezed mine. A small, quiet gesture, but it said everything. And as we sat together, I wondered how many people spent their whole lives missing the chance to be seen, to be wanted, to be loved this way. We weren't missing anything anymore. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next? If you want more slow burn, emotionally rich stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications.